You probably wondered how to fight corruption. I've got answers for you. You need to fire your 3 close friends and make your economy booming. It's not worth fighting your neighbors, instead, trade with them. How do you make things better if you have no resources? You need to work hard and count on yourself only. These words of wisdom come from this small country, which only 50 years ago used to have poor education, lacked natural resources, and was surrounded by unfriendly neighbors. No one believed in Singapore's future apart from Singapore itself. They fought corruption and got rid of it. And this country became a hub for the most successful enterprises, making its citizens wealthier, much more educated, and happier each year. This is Singapore when it just became independent. If you look at it, you would see typical Asian extremely poor slums. Why? Simply because Singapore had literally nothing. It didn't have natural resources to trade. Also, its size is extremely small. Some cities are even bigger than this country. But the most concerning is that Singapore lacked still water and food, so people used to live in rough and bad conditions. So that you understand, its GDP, which usually tells us how people live, was a little over $400, somewhere between Costa Rica and Jamaica. But Singapore is pretty well located. It used to be right on the trading path from Europe to Asia. And this was why Singapore was established by the British in the first place. They located a trading port right here. A few decades later, this place became the most valuable spot for the British Crown in this area, because this trading port was free of taxes and fees. So it attracted more and more ships and goods passing by Singapore. But right after World War II, British Empire ultimately ended, and its colonies became independent countries. There were plenty: India, African countries, Malaysia, and Singapore, all united in some way. But it's often the case, when one power leaves, the other one wants to take over, right? But let's be real, 100 million people live in Indonesia and 10 million in Malaysia could stand for themselves. But Singapore, this tiny country with 1.6 million people and so many problems, couldn't do that, obviously. Living conditions? Awful slums. Work? Unemployment was chronically high, 10%. People? Singapore didn't have its own nation. Back then, 75% were Chinese, 13% Malaysian, and the remaining Indian. An interesting thing is that those figures remain around the same now. Back then, no one believed in Singapore and didn't see its potential until this man came into the picture. Lee Kuan Yew managed to turn things around in 30 years. How did he do it? He had several principles. The first one, never ask for help, offer it instead. In the 20th century, everyone desperately needed one thing: oil. But remember, Singapore didn't have anything. Yet, huge companies started moving to Singapore, not just selling its fuel, but why else then? The thing is, the local government offered pretty juicy deals to build up oil refineries. Remember Singapore's winning location, right? And it's an amazing port with no fees and taxes. Thanks to this, Singapore became one of the largest hubs for oil refining in the world. And it was not just the oil, Lee Kuan Yew was considering all ideas that could offer more jobs so people would have money to live on. For instance, Singapore was more than happy to host a small Norwegian company that wanted to produce fish hooks. As a result, hundreds of jobs and tons of fish hooks of all shapes and kinds were exported around the world. But this little company couldn't be the reason behind Singapore's booming economy, right? The country needed to attract larger enterprises. So the government established a department that was looking for investors around the world, sorting out any problems those investors could potentially face moving to Singapore. Here comes the second principle: invest in potential areas. Right before one of the most important years in history, 1969, Singapore made one of the wisest decisions. What happened in 1969? The first landing on the moon, the origins of the internet, and microprocessors. Yes, that year was pretty remarkable, but Singapore was a year ahead of everyone. They got lucky because Texas Instruments was looking for the best place to produce its semiconductors, and Singapore was that perfect spot. As we remember from a video about Intel, semiconductors require a lot of water, place, and working power. A year later, HP and General Electric moved to Singapore as well. A decade later, when the whole world was obsessed with computers, Singapore was one of the largest exporters of microelectronic components, essentials for any computer. This was a time when Singapore started to build up its financial center. The thing is, finance worked by clock. Headquarters in Zurich opens at 9 a.m., followed by 9 a.m. in London a little later, and then New York. By the time Zurich closes down, London and New York transfer money to San Francisco. But when San Francisco is about to close down, Zurich isn't up yet. So what country comes in handy? Right, Singapore. This way, this financial circle is perfectly complete, and money flows all day long. This means that the banking works 24 hours a day. Genius. The third principle, the main resource is talented people. Lee Kuan Yew did everything so that Singapore became a perfect place for talented people from developed countries. The climate and location were already perfect, but Singapore needed to work on education, healthcare, and many other things. Everything needed to be up to the standards overseas, so people would want to move from there to Singapore and work there. The key decision was made to change the official language to English. Lee Kuan Yew made people learn English as their first language. This move united people around the country, and secondly, this way Singapore could easily enter international fields: business, diplomacy, science, and innovation. Moving on to the fourth principle. Even the smallest power creates a desire to take it over. As I said before, Singapore executed the corruption. By all means, this country did that like in 5 steps. Although, just like any other Asian country, corruption was everywhere. So, what Singapore did is, first of all, it considers that a bribe could be anything that has value. Second of all, it monitors living conditions. In case you're living way out of your official paycheck and have an expensive house, a fancy car, or watch, all of this prove you're breaking the law. The third step was to empower local authorities to monitor and check anyone they wished, including families, relatives, and friends. Step 4. Increase fees from 10,000 Singaporean dollars to $100,000. Anyone who is involved in a corruption scheme or covers it has to pay a lot of money or get prison time. But the most important step is number 5. To pay government workers a lot of money so corruption would no longer be even considered, as people would be afraid to lose everything they have. The principle I really admire is number 5. Each citizen gets part of the country's wealth. You see, one of the major problems in old Singapore was living conditions. People used to live in slums. Those are disgusting, but they were everywhere and hosted a lot of people. So that you understand, one fire case over 60 years ago destroyed an entire block, and over 16,000 people were left homeless. What Lee Kuan Yew did was to build up quality social housing, but not for rent. He didn't want that. Instead, he wanted people to own the place. He believed that if a person owned a house, it would benefit the rest of the country and its overall stability. 750,000 apartments were built in 30 years, and only 9% of them are for rent. The rest are owned by people. Singapore hadn't yet made it to the top of the list of the best place to live, because the higher the wages, the higher the cost, right? This is why Singapore maintained its pole position as the world's most expensive city for the 9th time in the last 11 years. Yet, it is one of the easiest places to start a business with low taxes and a fairly competitive environment. This is why companies around the world invest in Singapore. This country had nothing, but people living on a tiny but strategically important piece of land. People are important. You are important. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit a like button and share it with friends. See you soon.